People ask about the cost of living in the Philippines all the time. But here's the problem. Numbers don't tell you how a place actually feels. So instead of just talking about prices, today I want to compare what the same money actually buys you in three very different places. Mactan in Cebu, Cebu City, and Panglao, Bohol. This way we're going to compare city convenience versus island peace, and then try to find something maybe in between. Because the real question isn't what's cheaper to save you the most amount of money, it's really where do you actually want to live based upon the lifestyle that you'd like to have. So that's what today's video is about. Let's jump in. To keep this on target, I'm going to focus mostly on condo living here, and then maybe a little bit of throw in some home prices in more maybe Panglao area, are less expensive to buy a house in Panglao than in Cebu City, Mactan area. It's literally probably half the price. But I want to cover both monthly rental costs and then, where possible, what the cost is to buy. So I'll focus primarily on condos in Mactan, Cebu, and in Cebu City, Cebu, and not so much get into the luxury type stuff. I'm going to do like what the average person could afford, and then that way you know kind of where we're coming from. When we do come over to Bohol, though, there isn't as many condo options here, and the condo options we have for the same price, you can rent a home. So I'll probably focus in that direction, just so you know where we're going for today's video. So let's get started. So if we're in the Cebu City area, we're really paying for access and convenience, because in that area you have great access to malls, restaurants, hospitals, and so if there's anything you're looking for, like a Starbucks or one of my favorite restaurants, Texas Roadhouse, or Chili's. I know in the U.S. Chili's is just an average restaurant. There's a very good Chili's for whatever reason in the Ayala Mall area in Cebu City. So if you happen to be there, I check that out. So you get those things that feel a little bit more like home, makes the transition a little bit easier when you leave the West and come on over, to find those things that you're more comfortable and used to having in the States, for example. So you get the city convenience of Cebu City, but then you're going to pick up the traffic. And then most people either live in the IT business park area, and that's where they have a lot of these call centers, and that's why it's called that. The main bus terminal comes into that area, and that's where a lot of the workers come in by bus in the morning and leave in the evening. And then not far from there is an area that starts going up into kind of the foothills of Cebu City, and that's where you're going to find like the Marco Polo residences and some of the other more popular condos for the Cebu City area. So most people land in a condo somewhere near the Marco Polo residences, which is very close to Ayala Mall, or they're in the IT Business Park, which is just another 10 minutes away. So that's kind of where you are for Cebu City. If you're in Mactan, Mactan's got a lot of resorts along the coast. So when you're in the resort areas, a lot of them are relatively new. Some of them can be kind of pricey. Definitely buying the property there is very pricey. So please keep this in mind. When we compare it to Panglao, Bohol, the price of buying a condo in Mactan, you can buy a full house here in Bohol. In fact, you could probably build a custom house for the price of a lot of these upper-end condos in Mactan. What it does give you is all of the features and amenities that come with the Mactan area along the coast. So when you get into complexes like the Reef or Tambuli and several of these others, they're going to have their own restaurants and shops and just a little bit of conveniences. And they may be right on the beach. It'll have lots of pools. Some of them have access to a gym and a lot of other amenities. So it's more like a resort style life that you're going to have there. And because of that, you're going to pay a premium in order to do that. If you want to save money, you're best then to go about 45 minutes away from the Mactan area, which is also near this Cebu City airport, right? That's in Mactan or Lapu-Lapu, which is the area around it. You're going to probably have to drive 45 minutes in traffic in order to get to Cebu City, where people typically have the condos in the Ayala Mall area or the IT Park area or somewhere close by to that. The trade-off is traffic. And for me, I really considered Mactan. I really liked the Tambuli area. There's also Mactan Newtown, and that is a very up-and-coming area, but it's quite pricey. You're going to pay a lot per square meter for a very small condo in Mactan Newtown. And I looked at all of these places when I first came over here about 9-10 months ago to live. I've been going back and forth for almost 10 years, but I would come for 3-4 weeks at a time and then go back to the U.S. But I've been living here since July, and when I first came over here, I had looked several times at condos in the Mactan area, and it kind of narrowed it down because once you're in some of those resort type areas, you can travel, you can leave, you've got 24/7 security, and that's going to become a bigger and bigger issue for you if you are going to spend some time in the Philippines and sometimes traveling someplace else, whether it's back to the U.S. or another location in the Philippines or Southeast Asia. You want to make sure that that property that you have is secure. The Marco Polo residences, which are pretty close to the Ayala Mall, kind of just above that area in Cebu City, and the Marco Polo residences, which are kind of up on a hill a little bit, they're not far from the IT park either. So if you're looking to go to either the business park or the IT park, if you're working there or your girlfriend or spouse is working there, maybe at a BPO, like a call center. And I think there's probably now 4 towers or so. They're building another one. Let me take a moment and kind of show you some of the units, which are mostly either a studio, a 1-bedroom, or a 2-bedroom unit. Okay, this is the 1-bedroom. As you can see, it's pretty tight as far as the square footage goes. The living room is more like a rectangle with a little bit of a balcony. It's a pretty small balcony. The view depends upon what floor that you're on and which direction, if you're facing the city or the mountains. But it had a decent bedroom here. I mean, it's still small. It comes with this built-in cabinet. A couple of shelves up above the bed. So not a lot of extra room. The studios and 1-bedrooms are quite small. Here's a little of a view looking down at the pool and towards the mountains a little bit, away from the ocean. Kind of a pretty area. And then going back through the unit here. There's the whole window shot. A couple of built-in shelves there. And that might be custom to each individual unit. Someone might have adjusted that. Here's the kitchen. I found it pretty efficient. There's a lot of storage space given the size of this kind of rectangular kitchen. But I found it very functional. And it was one of the few places that actually had gas burners instead of electric. Most places had electric. That's actually your washing machine right there. It's typically a Samsung. There's your refrigerator. Smaller, but... And here's a look at the bathroom. It's got an interesting shower fixture. This is what they do in different parts of Asia, where it's a combination of a shower head and a faucet. And then back to the just overall look of the living room. This one actually was decorated fairly well compared to a lot of the others. And some additional shelves they added in a little desk. Here's the 2-bedroom. 57,000 pesos per month, so it's not cheap. Had a bigger living room area, kind of in between the rooms. The curtains were pulled because it was the afternoon. It's on the west. Here's one of the bedrooms. Like they had an extra mattress there, but that's the size you have there. Just enough room to have a little desk, but also a little bit of a window and then the cabinet. There's really just enough space in here for your clothes. Here's another look at the living room. And just enough area there for a table for 4. And then here's the bathroom. And then coming into the kitchen, I actually thought the kitchen was kind of awkward for a bigger 2-bedroom unit. I did not think they did a good job utilizing the space. This is an extra room here for storage. Some people will have actually a maid stay there too. And the amenities really do vary from tower to tower. They're not the same. All of them include a pool and a gym of some sort, but then they have varying options depending upon the tower. So for example, in one of the towers, there was actually, in the amenities area, there was a separate movie room that you could reserve it, bring in your friends or family, and it's kind of got that theater seating, really comfortable big seats, and then you can bring up your Netflix and watch whatever you want to watch. So that was an amenity that I saw in one of the towers, but not in all the towers. And then another newer tower actually had a common workspace area, which I thought was kind of cool. So for those of you that are working from home or just want to get out of your unit for a little while, there's kind of a common area space that they made it, very connected, as far as having electrical outlets and anything else that you need. So I thought that was kind of a unique attribute there, and that was the newest tower. Here's some of the purchase prices. For a studio, if you wanted to buy it, you're looking at some pretty small studios on the beginning side of that, which would be 22 square meters, which is only 237 square feet, which, goodness gracious, that's only a room that's like 10 by 20, right? So that's pretty small. But if you do the kind of standard size studio, you're looking at closer to 409 square feet. And from a purchase price standpoint, we're talking between 3.5 to 5.4 million pesos, which, as you can see, is between 62,000 and 96,000 US. If you want to rent the same unit, they seem to start around 25,000 to 30,000 for a studio per month. And so that kind of gets you between about 450 and 535. For a 1-bedroom, if you want to purchase that, you're looking at between 40 and 44 square meters on average. So between 430 and 473 square feet. That's going to set you back just about 5 million pesos. That's going to put you in the range between about 85,000 to 95,000 US. That same unit rents for just 30 to 32,000 pesos per month. And, that's pretty inexpensive at 535 to 571. So, based upon this math, it would be a lot less expensive to rent than to buy. For the 2-bedroom, you're looking at between 88 square meters and 100 square meters, or basically roughly between 950 square feet to 1,086. And you're looking at roughly, in the range between 9.5 and 10.5 million pesos, which is going to set you back between roughly 170,000 to 193,000 US. Again, you can rent that unit at 65,000 to 85,000 pesos per month, which is going to get you to 1,160 to about $1,500 per month. I'm kind of surprised at how much more expensive the 2-bedroom is versus the 1-bedroom. And if you look at kind of what they rent for, they rent like the price per square meter is more in the larger unit. They do have 3 bedrooms also. I didn't see any for rent. They tend to be more on the penthouse type properties at the top. And let's take a look at what the prices are there, which are pretty high. So to purchase a 3-bedroom, you're looking at 90 to 98 square meters on average. Those would be the standard units. There is a separate unit that's 140 square meters out in penthouse, and that would put you up around somewhere close to 335 to 350,000 US. So on the standard 3-bedroom, 90 to 98 square meters, roughly 1,000 to 1,050 square feet, you're looking at here between 232,000 and 267,000. Again, pretty pricey. The property does have some really nice views, so it depends upon the unit, but either you're overlooking the city or the mountain area, and some of the views went all the way to the coast. So I thought they had some pretty decent views. I want to show you what some of the units look like in Tambuli. And you're most likely to either rent either a studio or a one-bedroom, because most of the properties here in the towers are either a studio or a one-bedroom. There are a few two-bedrooms available, but they're harder to come by and they're much more expensive to rent. Now, there are tremendous ocean views from the balconies of some of these units. It depends which direction you're facing. In general, either it faces to the east and so you see the sunrise, or to the west and then you see the afternoon sun and then the sunset, right? So those are kind of your two choices. The one thing I would say is, as much as it's nice to see that sunset, you're going to have afternoon sun from 1 o'clock until dark hitting on those windows on that side, so it gets kind of hot in the unit. So I would say for Tambuli, really the downside is that you're 30 minutes away from any type of a major mall. And the largest mall in Cebu City, which is called Seaside Mall, is about 30 minutes away, and it's a really nice mall. It has everything you can possibly think of. It's something like 3 or 4 stories tall. I think it's 4. Lots of restaurants in there, and has a complete array of retail stores, many of them being U.S. brands. If you want to go to Cebu City to either the Ayala Mall or the business park or the IT park, it's going to be a full 45 to 60 minute drive from Tambuli to get to those locations. Tambuli is more of a resort destination, but one downside is that when you go outside the guard gate, it's very much like you're in the province. And unfortunately, right next door, there is one of those government properties with some squatter homes on government land. So the government could clear them out, but for now, it's just very province looking. And that's the difference between Tambuli and Mactan Newtown. Mactan Newtown is completely its own city within city. You don't have any of that, right? So that's just one thing that's a difference. And the other thing is, if you were up by the IT park, same thing. It's a self-contained city, so you're not going to deal with that. So it depends how your kind of view on that. I'm not judging one way or the other. I'm just saying when you come outside the guard gate, it's a bit, I'm going to call it provincial. Just kind of take that in consideration. So let's move on to our third option, which is Panglao Bohol. We're going to start off at Portofino Residence. It's a place that we used to rent. It rents for about 30,000 pesos per month. It's a pretty place and very, very quiet. And it's in the Panglao area, probably a couple kilometers from Alana Beach.
The water in the pool go all over the place. Marco.
Polo.
So we're just having some fun here in the pool. That was one of the really nice benefits. It had a great pool. We used to swim every day. So here's what the one-bedroom condo looks like. Again, it's 30,000 pesos per month. If you sign a contract for 3 to 6 months, they'll drop it down to 25,000 pesos per month. And then you have to pay utilities, electric, water, Wi-Fi. So it ends up probably running, another 5,000 pesos per month total. So you're either going to pay 30 or 35,000 depending how you frame it. It has a really nice balcony to it. After 6 months of staying in Portofino in the one-bedroom condo, we decided to move on out to a subdivision and rent in what we call Royal Palms Cuatro here. And that's still on the Panglao Island, but it's a little further east in an area called Dowie. And the nice thing is you've got 24/7 security, so you can come and go, travel, whatever you need to do, and you don't have to worry about the place that you're staying. It's all protected. So that is a real advantage in a subdivision. This one has a pool and a clubhouse and also a workout room. This is what some of the units look like. There are different models. We actually rented the Palacios Grande model. It's a small 4-bedroom. I think it's around 85 square meters roughly, or about 850 square feet total. Well, these are some of the different units that kind of give you an idea what the subdivision actually looks like. And yeah, here's our rent, 35,000 pesos per month. That includes an HOA fee of about 1,200 pesos. So as we walk into the unit, it goes straight into the living room, and then there is the bedroom downstairs, which I have converted into my office, and that's where I'm editing this video from. So that bed's out of there, and it had an air conditioning unit. This is the kitchen. The one thing we don't like about the kitchen is a pretty small refrigerator, but we've got a great landlord, and they've been really receptive to things need to be fixed. Here's the kitchen. It's got a 4-burner stove. You do basically pick up the propane tank and then have it filled and placed underneath. You've got a kind of a side door here so you can see the neighbor. Here's the main kitchen and dining room area. Again, it's not large, but for 5,000 pesos more per month, we're actually in a 4-bedroom home. And that was kind of my point, that in Bohol, in my opinion, I would rather rent a home for about the same price as a condo. So there's trade-offs as far as the amenities go sometimes, but we don't have the same kind of condo supply as they do in like Cebu City, BGC, and other areas. So this is actually a pretty good opportunity. This is the living room here, what that looks like. Looks like somebody's taking a nap. I think this is the day that we moved in. So that was back in December here at the end of 2025. There are 3 bedrooms upstairs, and then I want you to see what the overall Panglao area looks like from about a couple hundred feet in the air. This is me shooting my drone, trying to give you a perspective of what Panglao kind of looks like. And then we're looking at Dumalaon Beach, which is one of our favorite beaches here. It is a very gorgeous place, white sand beach. And so, for us, and the purpose of this video is to say, well, what's the lifestyle that you want to have, right? That's the important choice here. You have the city convenience of like Cebu City. We talked about that. We talked about Marco Polo residences. We talked about the IT business park. You've got the Ayala Mall. You've got restaurants. You've got convenience, but you've got traffic. To get anywhere, it's going to take time unless you're really close, right? Whereas you can see here in Panglao Bohol, it's much more spread out. It's kind of like the countryside, and it's developing. There's a lot of building going on right now. Expats are coming in and buying up lots because what you can build a custom home for here in Bohol, and I'll just give a range between 12 and 20 million pesos. That's what a condo costs you in Mactan, and probably pretty close in Cebu City if you're going to purchase it. So from that standpoint, there's so much more value to your buck. And then this is, Panglao Island. It's attached with 2 bridges to the mainland of Bohol, which is Tagbilaran. The city's about 20 minutes away, depending upon where you are on Panglao Island. And within those 20 minutes, then you can get to the larger, grocery stores or anything in the mall that you need. But you have everything else that you need kind of Panglao Island. So the purpose of this video is to say, look, what is the lifestyle that you'd like to have? Do you want the city convenience? Do you want the resort style that you can get at Mactan, but you're going to pay more for it? Or do you want something maybe a little bit more in between, and you get this option here in Panglao Bohol? So if you're looking at Bohol, you're an expat, I would start in Panglao. You can look around the other parts of the island. The rest of the island, Bohol, entirely is going to be very provincial. It's not going to be as developed to Western standards, but it's going to be more traditional province. But it's very, very affordable, and that's what you're looking for. That works great. Just decide what's the lifestyle you want, because here in Panglao Bohol, we've got these beautiful beaches, right? So that's part of what we have here, so that's your choice. Well, thanks for watching this video. I just wanted to kind of throw out these options and see which one works best for you. And you can safely say kind of in a range of somewhere between 25,000 and 35,000 pesos per month, you can rent any one of these condo options and even a home option if you come over here to Bohol. So depending what you're looking for, those are kind of 3 good choices that if you're an expat considering coming over here, where I would start. Well, I hope this video was helpful to you, kind of gives you a perspective. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.